a scion of many worlds. The army driven off and Dusk, thoroughly impressed with him, had helped organize the soon-to-be former bandits a bit more thoroughly. Also, there was more than a little looting of the dead. A lot of armor and weapons were thoroughly destroyed by Jasper's little blitz, but a lot of side swords, belt knives, helmets, gauntlets, armored skirts, and boots were easily salvaged in addition to most of the personal kits of the soldiers he killed. His tendency to go for the torso and neck had shredded a lot of chainmail shirts, but those are easy enough to fix, so they went into the loot sacks too. Dusk had also claimed their leader's axe for her own. Apparently the two had history. Bad history, as she gave the corpse a kick in the head so hard that the large chunk of the body it's attached to goes flying. The girls of the bandit clan are so hungry that they immediately start choking down the dried trail rations the army has without much more water than what is in the canteens. Thankfully, many of the girls are attuned to water for their elements and know enough to squeeze fresher water out of the air with great effort. His six in particular really show off and conjure plenty for everyone, and he has to encourage people to hurry up instead of stopping for everyone to get hosed down and a little cleaner. First things first, get to safety. Many of the girls in the bandit clan don't think there's more danger as Jasper drove off the small army. But Jasper isn't fooled, and upon hearing her girls dismiss the danger, Dusk flies into a borderline fit of rage and does most of the work driving the bandits towards Aridus. Jasper stays on the rear as he listens to Dusk outright rant about how he got stupid lucky and how this bit of the army was in fact an unblooded new branch of the Night Slayers, as Lady Amara Lux, who Dusk had recognized personally at the front, was just transferring into the Night Slayers and rubbing her nose in it as Dusk was being forcibly drafted into the army. Apparently, Dusk, or Lady Brianna Dusk, was from an ennobled merchant family that backed the wrong candidate in a succession crisis and had been stripped of everything but their title in the chaos. Without the funds, guards, or favor to force things away, Brianna had been drafted as an example to her family and forced into this complete shitshow, which very thoroughly explains her lack of survival talents and combat skills. The girl had spent her life balancing sums, haggling, and learning how to insult someone without directly insulting them. The reason she used a mace at first was because it was easy to use, and hitting things hard with something heavy can end a fight pretty quickly. He just listens to her rant and understands more and more of what's going on. Miru is as thoroughly classist and racist as his 6 girls and the Star Seekers had informed him. It's a medieval society, and many Aramenta are straight up divided by their elements, with light and darkness being the noble elements. Most of his new recruits were people forcibly rounded up from the slums and farms and forced to the opposite end of the country as a big old distraction for the spies of the Greenstone Alliance. Something he just thoroughly tore apart by wiping out the freshly graduated trainees in defense of the bandits. And the reason why you can't do this openly and use it for intimidation is, he asks, already knowing the answer. Because if Miru doesn't do things this way, then it will end as a people, as there will be no children to carry the future. Brianna answers, and it comes out as something she has memorized. It's a canned answer to the question. Yeah, I thought it was something like that, Jasper notes. So basically, the grand midwives say, no war, so people try to get clever and you ended up beneath the boot for it. Essentially, Brianna admits, and he sighs in frustration. Well-intentioned, but they've both made the wrong choice and let things play out much too far. Jasper groans to himself. I need a proper talk with them before my people get here. Make sure they don't do something stupid like try to start a crusade or something. Speaking of the grand midwives, how do you do it? If you mean breeding, then it's fairly simple, but as an Earthani, I apparently need rain for it to... Jasper cuts himself off as something flits at the edge of his awareness. That was not an animal stalking, that was someone realizing they were too close and bugging out. We have company. Who? Brianna asks in terror, and he shrugs. I don't know. They were gone too quickly to get a good look. They do know to treat me as an enemy, and they understand the sheer range and clarity my antennas grant me, so they're informed and competent. But we're almost out of Miru. Half of my girls already are. If we're attacked now, it's an act of war unless they can find some justification, Jasper says, and she looks at him incredulously. You say that after spilling an ocean of blood? You see, I don't care about the whims of the grand midwives. I'm able to break their monopoly, and that's on top of my people coming. Also, technically, I had already claimed all of you as my new recruits, and you were heading for Aridus when I hit that army, so it was technically self-defense. Your people, she says, deciding to focus on the bit that isn't the type of political bullshitting that stripped her family of everything and was still a hair's breadth away from getting her killed. Yes, the undaunted. Yes, a warrior people from beyond the stars. Indeed. How is it that my best hope to survive is an insane mutant Earthani? Life's funny that way, Jasper answers as Brianna groans into her hands. I'm supposed to be organizing ships of spices and silks, not fighting armies or worrying about assassins. I never wanted to come to Aridus. It's a backwoods monastery. Brianna moans and Jasper pats her on the shoulder. Why is my last best hope a mutant Earthani? Why is my life like this? I am well educated and noble-blooded for 5 generations. He just pats her on the shoulder, not quite sure what he could say to comfort her after that rant and just letting her stew in it for a bit. The person flits into and out of his awareness a few more times, and he makes a point of not reacting as he gets a better and better look at them, make them think he's distracted so he can gather information. It mostly works, but the person in question is keeping things very distant in order to try and conserve their already lost element of surprise. So I have a question, Jasper says as they cross the threshold proper into Aridus Valley. Yes? Do the Night Slayers usually have assassins follow them around? Assassins? No. But Grand Commanders? Yes. Many of them. Well, if we are as your Night Slayer army, then you would be the Grand Commander. Amara Lux was training to be one, but clearly was out of her depth. And Grand Commanders are, I'm assuming, the most exceptional part of the army that breaks the enemy line while the rest do mop up and area control? Jasper asks, and she nods. Why are you asking these things? Because we're being stalked, he says shortly and flicks her in the forehead as she turns to look. Don't go looking for her. What's wrong with you? But, relax. She's targeting me. How is that supposed to relax me? You're the person who's offering shelter. We'll be thrown out and... Relax. She's targeting me. Go with your people. I need to speak to a few more people, Jasper says as he senses the figure, this time with a scroll out that they're examining before falling out of range. He takes off and launches into the valley to speak with the more official people and get a few things organized. It takes far less time than he was expecting, and due to it being fresh off the harvest, a feast begins. In less than 2 hours, every single member of the former bandit clan is eating or has eaten, and the injured and sick are being cared for. He's in the process of draining the local cantaloupe-style fruit with his proboscis and reducing it to a withered chunk as he's want to do after a decent workout when the stranger flickers in. He can sense it as a teleport in the axiom, and he turns to regard them, knowing already that it's a woman with a massive mace with the head nearly the size of her torso. Pale skin, golden sunlight-kissed hair that literally glows, light-based erumenta, foul abomination made by the Star Seekers. I am the most august clarity, grand battle maiden of Miru Empire. Your slaughter of... Hey, don't you turn away from me. She begins her speech, but since she's going to be Darkwing ducking it, he just turns away as he snaps off a piece of the dehydrated melon he drained and chewing it blandly. There's something in the rind, he's not sure what, but it really helps with the development of his internal organs. Why did you turn away from her? She's a serious threat, and Brianna begins to rant at him in an open panic before he suddenly teleports away, diverts his teleport last second, and charges Clarity as he draws his swords for a brutal opening attack from her open flank. She catches his swords on the head of her mace, and he doesn't even nick the weapon as he forces her back several meters with nothing more than sheer brute power. Her eyes are wide with shock before growing furious and suddenly lighting up like a nuclear explosion, and everyone screams as their eyes burn. Everyone but Jasper, who merely closes his and steps forward to keep balance as she melts to the side. He slashes at her a few times. She melts away each time, but he gauges her reactions before suddenly putting on even more speed and strength to catch her off guard, as he figures out the pattern and his blades start to bite down before she vanishes with a flash of axiom. She appears behind him and then has to use the haft of her massive war mace to block his kick and keep his foot claws away from her. He still slices the chainmail over her stomach and gets what smells like a few drops of blood. And here I doubted the stories of Orthani seeing without sight. It will almost be a shame to kill you. So much could be learned from an Orthani with a spine, Clarity says before slamming the ground with her mace. Now, the rest of her speech is cut off by Jasper's next charge, and she very wisely dodges as she senses the axiom he has running along his swords, and he turns to follow her with diagonal slashes that guide her into a brutal kick that she has to block again. He feels more of the chainmail part under his foot claws, but there's no spike in the scent of blood. He charges again, but jerks to the side before bouncing back at the last moment to throw her guard off, and she has to abandon her counterattack to avoid the deadly blades. The blades he lets go of, grabs the mace and twists out of her hands as he offers another bladed kick to force her to surrender the weapon. He pumps his wings to force himself forward despite being off balance and slams the mace down upon her, but she vanishes just as he makes contact and reappears some 50 paces away, no longer glowing brightly, but his eyes are still thoroughly cooked, so he's still relying on his antenna. Well, she begins and he pulls at the axiom, and his swords are suddenly in their sheaths again. He begins to slowly approach, massive mace easily held in his claws. You're a scary one. Unfortunately for you, I'm not an unblooded apprentice. Now, Magrica, she's here for me. She's mine. Jasper suddenly says, and Clarity turns back to find the Metak there with an annoyed look on her face, and her wings shaped like a forest of swords about to fall on her. Oh, fine. Magrica never gets to have fun. No one brings monsters to a battle of armies anymore. It's boring. You remember our deal. I get first refusal on fighting people, and you get it with fighting monsters. Jasper reminds her, and the Metak backs away from the clean killing stroke she had. Clarity looks towards Jasper and seems somewhat dumbfounded. It's almost a pity I have to kill you, she remarks before sending a flare of light upwards. Surrounding the valley, many beings flare with axiom, and the skies darken with fat clouds. But I know how to blind Orthani. I just never had the need before. Then the rains fall down, an absolute sheet of axiom-infused water pouring down over the Aridus Valley and blotting out his electromagnetic or whatever the hell he's actually sensing from his antenna, rendering him blind in both forms of sight, rendering him deaf with the sheer pounding din, rendering him distracted as his heartbeat accelerates and pounds loudly enough to be heard clearly over the rain. He cannot smell the blood for all there is in the air as the earthy scent the rain brings, and he looks upward to let the rain wash over his face. He cannot help but laugh, deep and strong, but with the Orthani trill behind it like a chiming bell in the background. He turns to face the negative in the axiom-infused water and nods to Clarity's utter shock. You would do well to abandon the petty queendom of Miru. The Undaunted and I would be well served to have a lieutenant as mighty and resourceful as you." With that said, he shifts his grip on the war mace and throws it to her. It lands next to her and he offers a smile full of Urthani needle teeth. "Take up that mace and we will continue to battle. Refuse it and we will speak instead." She grabs the mace after a moment's hesitation and he charges forward, gathering axiom around his swords as he also gathers it around his feet. He stomps as he gets close and forces everything to still near him. Then he starts to slash with his swords, leaving visible trails in the air as the rain pours around them, and he traces out slashes that grow stronger and stronger with every heartbeat, even as she starts to wear away the slowing effect. By the time she breaks out, he has dozens of slashes read and she zips away to dodge the dozens of shock waves that careen outwards and tear furrows into the ground. He pursues, bringing down his swords, and she has to dodge to the side as she brings around the mace as it roils with axiom. He ducks under it and feels a massive cavity form in the falling rain by the sheer shockwave of the blow. His swords come up in a pair of rising cuts that are parried by the armored portions of the mace haft, and she's sent skidding back through the mud as her boots fail to give her anywhere near the grip that his claws afford him. She barely dodges the double-stabbing thrust and then is slammed by his unfurling wing and forced against the flat of the sword. He sweeps her off her feet and slams her into the ground as he finishes shredding the chainmail over her stomach. His left foot is over her waist, and he pours disrupting energies around them. "Surrender! You're beaten!" It takes Clarity a moment to do anything but gape up at him. She tries to teleport several times, but he shreds the axiom construct before it can fully form, and his swords are resting against her abs. She sends up a second flare and the rain stop. "I, the most august Clarity, daughter of House Lumen, celebrated champion of the Miru Queendom, surrender." She gasps out before completely flopping back and starting to sob. "On your honor?" Jasper presses as he opens his healing eyes and makes out some parts of her. It's both an upside and downside of compound eyes. Maybe one in every 15 of them are working, but he has so many he can mostly make out her expression of abject horror and self-loathing. "On what remains of my broken honor, I surrender. Please don't kill me, milady."